12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. Life is chaos. Pain is guaranteed. And nobody's coming to save you. But what if you could turn that chaos into something meaningful? What if standing up straight, literally and metaphorically, could change your brain, your life, your future? Today, we're diving into the powerful, controversial, and brutally honest lessons of 12 Rules for Life by Dr. Jordan Peterson. A guide not for playing it safe, but for facing the storm head-on. Stick around because by the end of this, you won't just think differently, you'll live differently. Let's get into it. Rule 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back. Rule number 1 sounds simple, almost like something your grandma would tell you. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. But Peterson argues this is far more than just about good posture. It's a biological and psychological imperative rooted deep in our evolutionary history. He starts with an unexpected creature, the lobster. Why lobsters? Because, as Peterson explains, these crustaceans, despite being evolutionarily ancient, around for over 350 million years, have nervous systems simple enough for scientists to map accurately. And guess what? They operate on principles strikingly similar to humans, especially when it comes to social hierarchies. Lobsters fight for territory. The best spots on the ocean floor mean better shelter, more food, and more mating opportunities. Sound familiar? Peterson points out that when a lobster wins a fight, its brain chemistry changes. It gets a surge of serotonin, making it appear more confident and dominant. It puffs itself up, looks bigger, and is more formidable. The loser. Its serotonin drops, octopamine rises, and it becomes withdrawn, hunched, and less likely to fight again soon. Now, how does this connect to us standing tall? Peterson suggests our brains have incredibly ancient structures, inherited from ancestors stretching back long before humans, designed to track our position in the social hierarchy. This internal calculator, as he calls it, profoundly influences our mood, confidence, and behavior. When you slouch, hunch your shoulders, look down, you're physically embodying defeat. Your brain registers this posture, potentially reducing serotonin availability, just like the losing lobster. This can make you feel less confident, more anxious, more sensitive to stress, and less likely to assert yourself. It's a physical signal that broadcasts low status, both to yourself and to others. People, like lobsters, size each other up based on posture and presence. Present as defeated, and the world might just treat you that way, creating a vicious feedback loop. But Peterson's point is deeper than just fake it till you make it. Standing up straight with your shoulders back isn't just a physical act. It's a metaphorical one. It signifies voluntarily accepting the burden of being, confronting the challenges of life head-on, rather than shrinking away. Think about it. When you face a challenge willingly, your nervous system responds differently than when you brace for a catastrophe you feel forced upon you. Facing a challenge activates courage and resilience. Bracing for catastrophe triggers anxiety and paralysis. Standing tall is an outward sign of an internal stance. I am willing to confront the difficulties of life. I am ready. Peterson argues this posture is about embracing the terrible responsibility of life, with eyes wide open. It's about accepting vulnerability, acknowledging the harsh realities of existence, the dragons, the chaos, but choosing to step forward anyway to carve out habitable order from the potential chaos. It's about manifesting your willingness to defend, expand, and transform your territory, whether that's your physical space, your career, your relationships, or your own mind. This posture, this stance towards life, encourages the flow of serotonin. It signals to your ancient internal calculator that you are secure, competent, and ready. This doesn't magically solve all problems, but it changes your response to them. You become calmer, more confident, less reactive, better able to think long-term, delay gratification, and act as a reliable, thoughtful citizen. It connects you to a lineage of successful life, stretching back hundreds of millions of years. It's not just about posture. It's about embodying a spirit of courageous engagement with reality. So the challenge isn't just to physically stand straighter. It's to adopt the metaphysical posture it represents. Face life's difficulties voluntarily, accept the burden of your existence, and dare to be dangerous in the best sense of the word. But just standing tall isn't enough if you're fundamentally treating yourself like dirt. This leads perfectly into Peterson's second, and perhaps even more counterintuitive, rule. Rule 2, treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. Ever notice how we often take better care of our pets than we do ourselves? Jordan Peterson highlights this strange yet relatable truth. People regularly neglect their own health while meticulously caring for their dogs or cats. Take medication as an example. Even patients who have undergone life-saving organ transplants sometimes fail to take essential meds that keep them alive. Yet, these same individuals would never dream of forgetting their pet's medication. What's behind this bizarre double standard? Peterson dives into the depths of human psychology to uncover why we neglect ourselves. He draws on powerful ancient stories, especially from the book of Genesis, to reveal timeless truths about human nature. These aren't just religious myths, they're symbolic dramas depicting fundamental aspects of being human. He introduces two key concepts, order and chaos. Order represents safety, routine, predictability, your job, your home, the familiar things you rely on. Chaos is the unknown, uncertainty, potential danger, but also opportunity, the new job, an unexpected crisis, or an exciting chance for growth. Human consciousness, Peterson argues, is the balancing act between these forces. Let's revisit Adam and Eve briefly. In paradise, they're safe, unaware, living in complete harmony, pure order. But the serpent, symbolizing chaos and uncertainty, tempts them to eat the fruit of knowledge. Suddenly, they become self-aware. They see their nakedness and vulnerability for the first time. They're ashamed and afraid, realizing their imperfections and potential for judgment. This awakening is the birth of human self-consciousness. We recognize our flaws and vulnerabilities clearly, which makes us uniquely capable of feeling shame, guilt, and inadequacy. But there's another, darker side to this knowledge. By knowing our vulnerabilities, we also learn precisely how to harm others. Unlike animals, humans can intentionally inflict pain, humiliation, and betrayal. This disturbing realization creates deep self-contempt within us. We know our darkest thoughts and weaknesses intimately, making it easy to feel unworthy of care and compassion. This explains why caring for a pet can feel simpler. Pets are innocent, incapable of deliberate cruelty or malice. We see them as worthy of unconditional love, something we struggle to grant ourselves. But Peterson warns that this mindset is a huge mistake. Recognizing your capacity for evil doesn't make you fundamentally evil. Genesis describes humanity as created in God's image, with the divine capacity for truth, order, and creativity. Yes, we're flawed, but we also hold the potential for tremendous good. Peterson reminds us that neglecting self-care isn't humility, it's rejecting the divine spark within us. Treating yourself like someone you're responsible for helping means acknowledging your flaws but deciding you're still worth the effort. It involves genuinely taking responsibility for your own well-being, not selfishly, but because you're important, needed, and valuable. Your choices affect everyone around you. Caring for yourself empowers you to reduce suffering and contribute positively to the world. Practically, this means defining clearly what good truly looks like for your life, not just immediate happiness, but genuine long-term flourishing. It means setting meaningful goals, honoring commitments to yourself, and celebrating your progress, just like you'd support someone you deeply care about. This isn't self-indulgence. It's recognizing and respecting the miracle of your conscious existence despite its challenges. It's bravely aiming upward, fully aware of your imperfections. And speaking of the importance of positive choices, especially regarding the people around you, this sets the stage perfectly for Peterson's next piece of wisdom, Rule 3. Rule 3, make friends with people who want the best for you. Rule 3, straight to the point, Jordan Peterson is asking us to choose friends who want the best for us. Sounds simple, right? But he dives into why we often struggle with this basic advice and how choosing the wrong friends can have serious consequences. Peterson shares stories from his own teenage years in a tough little town called Fairview, Alberta. He had a friend named Chris, smart, curious, but also angry and resentful. Chris and his cousin Ed kept falling into the same old traps. Even after moving away for better opportunities, they always ended up back in toxic friendships that kept them stuck in negative patterns. Chris once admitted he chose friends who disliked themselves just enough to tolerate his own flaws. But why would anyone choose friends who aren't good for them? First, there's low self-esteem. If you don't think much of yourself, you probably won't seek out better friendships. You'll settle for people who reinforce your negative self-image. Second, it can be about avoiding responsibility. Hanging out with friends who enable your worst habits is comfortable. It's like an unspoken agreement. Let's all stay down here together, and nobody pushes anyone to improve. That way, you never have to face the challenge of growing or confronting your potential. Third, and this one might surprise you, it's the impulse to rescue people. Maybe you're someone who loves helping others. That's great, but Peterson warns there's a downside. Not everyone who seems to need help actually wants it. Some people even take advantage of your good intentions, pulling you down instead of rising up themselves. Trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved usually ends badly for you. Peterson gives some blunt advice here. It's not noble to stick with friends who actively harm your growth, undermine your progress, or secretly want you to fail out of jealousy or resentment. Real friendship should build you up, celebrate your wins, and honestly, but gently, call you out when you mess up. These are the friendships worth having. Good friends won't put up with your excuses or destructive habits. They'll gently push you toward your best self, encouraging you to aim higher. But Peterson also reminds us this isn't easy. Choosing friends who aim high takes courage because their success can highlight your own shortcomings. It's tough standing next to someone who has great discipline when you're feeling lazy. It's uncomfortable seeing someone's integrity when you've been compromising your own values. It takes humility to admit your flaws and bravery to want to do better. Sure, it's easier short-term to hang around people who make your flaws seem normal, but that's a quick path to feeling stuck and resentful. Here's a practical tip. Ask yourself honestly, would I want my sibling, my kid, or my parent hanging out with this friend? If the answer is no, it's time to reconsider why you're spending your time with them. Now, this doesn't mean abandoning someone genuinely in need. It means knowing the difference between helping someone and enabling harmful behavior. Always prioritize friendships where both of you grow and lift each other up. All right, you're standing tall, you're taking care of yourself, and you're choosing friends wisely. Next, how do you measure your progress without losing hope? That's exactly what Rule 4 is about. Rule 4, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. This rule tackles one of the most pervasive sources of modern misery: comparison. In a world hyperconnected by social media, where you're bombarded with highlight reels, amazing vacations, perfect relationships, dream careers, it's easy to look at all this and incredibly easy to feel inadequate. Jordan Peterson has an interesting take on this. First, he points out an uncomfortable truth: life isn't fair. Some people naturally get more success because of talent, effort, luck, or a combination of all three. You might have noticed something called the Pareto principle, the idea that in most areas of life, a small number of people end up dominating. A few authors write most of the bestsellers, a few musicians make most of the hits, and just a handful of influencers get millions of followers. This isn't some grand conspiracy. It's just how life often shakes out. But even if that's true, it doesn't make it easier when you're feeling down because someone else seems way ahead. This is where your internal critic jumps in, that voice in your head that loves to point out every way you're not measuring up. It finds someone who's killing it in one particular area and convinces you that their success means your entire life is pointless. That's not just harsh, it's totally unrealistic. Here's the real talk. Comparing yourself to others like this doesn't make any sense. Everyone's life is different. They have different backgrounds, challenges, struggles, and hidden battles you never see. Comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel is always going to make you feel miserable. Peterson offers a better way. Instead of obsessing over how you stack up against others, start comparing yourself only to who you were yesterday. Ask yourself these simple questions. Who am I right now? What's going well and what's not working? Then identify one small, doable thing you can improve today. It doesn't have to be life-changing. It could be as simple as cleaning your desk, being a bit kinder in conversations, or skipping that negative habit you usually fall into. After you do that small thing, celebrate it. Enjoy a coffee, take a short break, or just acknowledge to yourself that you did something positive. Why? Because this builds trust and motivates you to keep going. Then tomorrow, do another small thing, and then another the next day. This is how real change happens, little improvements stacking up over time like compound interest for your life. Before you know it, your trajectory shifts from feeling stuck or going downhill to moving steadily upwards. Your life is not just one game, it's a series of many different games: career, friendships, family, health, hobbies, and more. You won't be perfect at all of them, and that's totally okay. What matters is making steady progress from where you started. Remember, your direction matters much more than your starting point. What you aim at shapes what you see. If you keep aiming at small ways to improve each day, you'll start seeing opportunities everywhere. So focus on being better than the person you were yesterday, not better than someone else today. This is a game you can actually win, and winning this game, day after day, is how you build a genuinely fulfilling life. Now, mastering this personal growth is powerful. But how can we teach this to the next generation, especially when it feels like the world is set up to make this harder than ever? That's exactly what Rule 5 is all about. Rule 5: do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. All right, buckle up. This rule is going to ruffle some feathers, especially if you're used to the let kids be kids philosophy. Jordan Peterson says clearly, don't let your kids do things that make you dislike them. Sounds harsh, right? But here's what he really means: if your kids act in ways that drive you nuts, or worse, make other people not want to be around them, it's your job to step in. Think about it. We've all seen it. The screaming toddler at the airport throwing a tantrum to get what they want, the kid smacking their sibling while the parent just shrugs it off, or that 4-year-old no one wants to play with because he hasn't learned basic manners. These aren't small issues. They're big red flags that something needs to change. Here's the tough truth: not all kids can be described as angels. Sorry, Rousseau. Peterson argues that the idea that kids are born pure and only get messed up by society just isn't always true. Any parent who's watched their toddler hit, bite, or steal knows aggression doesn't need to be taught. It's already there, built in. Kids test limits. It's how they figure out their place in the world. So what's your job as a parent? You've got to teach them how to control those natural impulses before they hit kindergarten. By around age 4, kids start to learn most of their social skills from other kids. If they don't have the basics down, sharing, playing nicely, resolving conflicts, they'll get rejected. And rejection hurts. It doesn't just make recess awkward, it can mess them up for life, causing loneliness, depression, or even anger problems later on. Here's another uncomfortable truth: parents who avoid discipline aren't being nice, they're dropping the ball. Often they're scared of tantrums, scared of not being their kid's favorite person, scared they'll lose their child's affection. But avoiding discipline for short-term peace creates long-term chaos. We've all seen what happens next. Kids without clear boundaries become little tyrants, making everyone miserable. They're also totally unprepared for the real world because, spoiler alert, life has consequences. Peterson says discipline isn't about anger or revenge. It's actually about love and responsibility. You start small: a look, a firm no, a timeout. If that doesn't work, you escalate just enough to set clear boundaries. Yes, he's controversial when he mentions physical discipline, like a small swat in very limited situations. His point: sometimes the long-term damage from unchecked bad behavior can be worse than careful discipline. The key here: keep rules clear, consistent, and limited. Work together as parents, checking each other so discipline stays fair and controlled. And most importantly, don't let resentment creep in. If your kid's behavior makes you secretly dislike them, trust me, they'll feel it, and that's way more harmful than any structured discipline. Remember, you're preparing your kids for the real world. Teaching them how to behave, respect others, and be enjoyable to be around is a huge gift. It sets them up for friendships, opportunities, and happiness far more effectively than indulging their every whim or boosting their self-esteem artificially. And getting this right at home, well, that sets the stage perfectly for tackling Rule 6. Rule 6: set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. A lot of people misread this rule, thinking it means you need to be perfect before you can have an opinion. But that's not what he's saying at all. Instead, Peterson is talking about something deeper: personal responsibility and humility. Basically, he's warning us not to project our inner chaos onto everyone else. Peterson kicks things off by diving into the mindset of resentment and bitterness. He uses examples like the Columbine shooters and Goathe's character Mephistopheles, figures who hated existence itself. Why? Because when life feels unfair or overwhelming, the temptation to blame reality and want revenge against the world is very real. And this isn't just theory. This attitude has led to some of history's darkest tragedies. He illustrates this with the famous writer Leo Tolstoy, who, despite fame and success, fell into a deep depression. Tolstoy started believing life was meaningless and evil, leaving him feeling trapped between suicide or living a life he didn't believe in. Peterson argues Tolstoy overlooked a critical point. Anger at the unfairness of life doesn't just lead to self-destruction. It can lead to hurting others as a twisted form of protest against reality itself. Think Cain and Abel. Cain didn't just resent Abel, he resented the very structure of reality that favored Abel. So how do we avoid falling into that kind of destructive thinking? Peterson offers the powerful example of Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Locked away in a brutal Soviet prison camp, Solzhenitsyn could have easily blamed the world for his suffering. But instead, he asked himself a really tough question. How did I contribute to this mess? What role did I play? Solzhenitsyn bravely confronted his past, his support for bad ideas, and his silence when he should have spoken up. He realized that good and evil run through every single person, including himself. Taking responsibility for his own mistakes allowed him to grow and find meaning even in the worst conditions. Peterson says this is exactly where we all need to start. Before tackling huge world issues, first deal with the chaos inside yourself. You don't have to be perfect, but you should honestly evaluate your life. Are you making the most of your opportunities? Are you working hard? Are you treating your family and friends with kindness and respect? Do you have habits you know are destructive? Are you carrying your own weight in life? Have you faced your past and spoken your truth? Most importantly, Peterson tells us, stop doing things you know are wrong. Stop saying things that make you feel fake. Stop behaving in ways that make you feel weak or ashamed. Start aligning your actions with your real values, even if you're still figuring out exactly what your values are. By taking responsibility for your own mess first, you'll start seeing life more clearly. Your thoughts become sharper, you get stronger emotionally, and your bitterness fades. As you improve your life, you'll naturally become someone who can genuinely help make the world better, not someone who just complains or spreads negativity. This rule is about owning your life, taking charge, and becoming someone who can truly make a difference. But how exactly do we know where to start? Peterson gives us a guide in the next rule. Rule 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. Alright, so we've talked about how tough life can be. Jordan Peterson makes it clear right at the start. Life comes with pain built in. He uses that old story of Adam and Eve getting kicked out of paradise. Childbirth is tough, work is exhausting, and in the end, we all go back to dust. Pretty grim stuff, right? So knowing life can be rough, what should we do? Well, the easiest thing to do would be chasing pleasure, just going for whatever feels good right now. Peterson calls this the quick and easy route. Party hard, take shortcuts, and don't worry about tomorrow. Cheat a little, lie if you have to, just don't get caught. After all, if life has no deeper meaning, why not just grab whatever you can whenever you can? Peterson highlights a chilling line from an ancient text that sums this up. Let's crush the weak, let our strength make right. This is the voice of someone chasing quick wins without caring about consequences. But Peterson argues this path, while tempting, is ultimately shallow and destructive. It ignores a deeper human need, a more powerful antidote to suffering, meaning. He introduces a powerful idea, sacrifice. Not the scary, weird kind of sacrifice you might be picturing, but a smart human discovery. Think about our ancestors hunting for food. At some point, they realized if they saved some meat instead of eating it all immediately, they'd have food for later. Boom, sacrifice was born. Sacrifice means giving up a bit of comfort now to build a better tomorrow. That's literally how humans discovered the idea of the future. Today, work is a sacrifice. You give up relaxing now for security later. Sharing your resources with others. That's also a sacrifice. You give away something valuable today to build trust and relationships for tomorrow. It's all about being smart enough to trade immediate pleasure for future gain. Our ancestors even turned this idea into rituals, treating the future like a powerful, judgmental force like God that needed offerings. But then Peterson asks a tough question. What's the right sacrifice? Small sacrifices fix small problems. But what about big sacrifices? Could they fix bigger, deeper issues? That's where stories like Cain and Abel or Abraham and Isaac come in. Cain made a sacrifice, but it got rejected. Abel's sacrifice was accepted. Why? Peterson suggests Cain's attitude, his heart wasn't in the right place. Then there's Abraham, who's asked to sacrifice the most precious thing imaginable, his own son. Relax, Peterson's not literally telling anyone to hurt their kids. Instead, he's asking, what do we have to let go of, even if it hurts, to reach our greatest potential? What beliefs, habits, or comforts hold us back from becoming our best selves? And that's what meaning is all about. Choosing meaning over shortcuts means aligning our actions with something bigger, something worth fighting for, even if it's tough right now. When your actions reflect your deepest values and long-term goals, life feels right. It makes the suffering worthwhile. Meaning isn't about avoiding pain, it's about making the pain count for something important. Think of it this way, short-term thinking asks, what do I want right now? But meaning asks, what should I do right now to create the best possible future? Chasing meaning means facing reality head-on, owning your responsibilities, and building a better life step by step. Yeah, it's harder, but according to Peterson, it's the only way to really live. And a key part of finding meaning. Being brutally honest about reality, which brings us directly into the next rule. Rule 8, tell the truth, or at least don't lie. All right, imagine you're building a house. Would you start with rotten wood or cracked bricks? Of course not. But that's exactly what happens when you lie even just a little bit. Jordan Peterson makes a simple but powerful point. Telling the truth, or at the very least not lying, is the foundation of a meaningful life. He shares this real-life story from his early days as a psychologist. A patient in a mental hospital asked him something difficult, and he had two choices: lie to keep things comfortable or tell the truth, even though it might hurt a little. He chose honesty, and yes, it was uncomfortable at first, but it led to understanding and acceptance. Here's why lying, even tiny lies, can mess you up. Peterson talks about something called a life lie. That's when you twist reality to fit a dream or idea that isn't realistic, like someone who spends decades chasing a fantasy life on a beach, missing out on everything else that's actually happening around them. Think of it like ignoring the elephant in the room or pretending everything's fine when it's clearly not. You might avoid awkward conversations or painful truths in the short term, but eventually, reality catches up, and it usually hits hard. One small lie leads to another until you're living in a web of lies. It weakens your character, leaves you unprepared for challenges, and frankly, it makes life miserable. And here's the bigger picture. It's not just about you. Societies built on lies crumble. History shows us how totalitarian governments rely on everyone lying, covering up truths to stay safe, until eventually everything collapses. So what's the alternative? Simply the truth. Not just cold facts, but being honest with yourself, saying what you really feel and acting in ways you genuinely respect. Peterson says start small, just stop lying. Avoid saying things you know aren't true. If something makes you feel weak, embarrassed, or ashamed, then stop doing it. Listen to that gut feeling when you're tempted to lie or hide something. It's your internal warning system. Sure, telling the truth might cause some short-term conflicts or discomfort, but it strengthens you in the long run. It builds real relationships and gives you a clear conscience. Over time, you'll discover who you really are and what truly matters to you. In short, truth is your flashlight in the dark, helping you see clearly. It's tough, like facing your biggest fears head-on, but it's also your best shot at a meaningful life. And once you've mastered speaking your truth, you need to get good at hearing it too, both from others and yourself. And that brings us neatly into Rule 9. Rule 9. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you do. Here's the thing, we're all pretty convinced we're right most of the time. But Rule 9 flips that around. Always assume the person you're talking to knows something you don't. Jordan Peterson says this isn't just about being nice. It's the core of real learning and growth. Let's be honest, most conversations aren't actually conversations. Usually we're just waiting for our turn to speak. Or worse, we're trying to win an argument or show off or dominate. Peterson breaks this down into common mistakes we all make. The one-upper, you tell a story and the other person instantly tries to beat it with something better, crazier, or more impressive. This isn't listening, it's a competition. And honestly, it just leaves everyone feeling weird. Waiting to talk, you're not even listening anymore. You're mentally rehearsing your next brilliant point. Conversations become awkward exchanges where nobody truly connects. The argument winner, you're not exploring ideas, you're defending a viewpoint like it's a battle. You cherry-pick facts, dismiss others, and the conversation becomes about validation instead of understanding. True listening, though, is something entirely different. Peterson says it takes guts. Why? Because truly listening means risking change. If you really understand someone else's viewpoint, you might realize you're wrong, or at least not totally right, and that's uncomfortable. Peterson recommends a powerful trick from psychologist Carl Rogers. Summarize what the other person says before responding. You restate their viewpoint clearly enough that they agree with you. Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant. This approach is amazing because it forces you to truly understand the other person's point of view. Makes ideas stick better because you're actively processing and summarizing. Stops you from misrepresenting their ideas. No more straw man arguments. Think about it this way. Good listening is like giving someone else's ideas space to breathe and be tested. When you genuinely listen, you help them clarify their thoughts and yours too. Peterson even compares thinking to an internal conversation, a dialogue between different parts of your own mind. Good listeners, then, are essential. They reflect back whether your thoughts make sense or not. So here's your challenge. Be the listener who assumes everyone else knows something valuable. Approach every conversation with openness and curiosity. Find people who will truly listen to you. People interested in collaborating, not just competing or preaching. Real conversations, the kind Peterson talks about, are rare, but they're powerful. They're the moments when masks drop, real connections happen, and growth occurs. This kind of listening isn't just polite, it's transformative. But there's more. Listening and understanding set you up to handle the complexity of life. But to truly succeed, you'll also need clarity and precision. And that's what the next rule is all about. Rule 10, be precise in your speech. This isn't about being a grammar nerd or using fancy words. It's about something way deeper. It's about how we actually see and handle the world. Peterson kicks things off with a simple example. Look at your laptop. What do you see? Just a screen, a keyboard, something to check emails on. But here's the twist, you're not really seeing the full picture. That laptop is part of this crazy web of tech, power, global systems, and social trust. You don't notice all that until it breaks. Then suddenly you're very aware that something's wrong. See, our brains are wired to simplify things. We don't walk around thinking, this floor is made of atoms arranged in a stable grid pattern. No, we just see a floor we can walk on. That's not a flaw, it's survival. If we had to pay attention to everything, we'd be overwhelmed 24/7. But here's where it gets tricky. When something goes wrong, your car dies, your relationship hits a wall, or you get bad news from the doctor, that nice, simplified version of reality crumbles. Chaos rushes in. Everything feels unstable, and suddenly you're drowning in what-ifs. This is why precision matters. If you just say, everything sucks, your brain doesn't know where to start. But if you can say, my car won't start and I need to be at work in an hour, then boom, now you've got something you can do something about. It's like shining a flashlight into a dark room. The unknown is terrifying. But once you point to the actual thing, even if it's bad, at least you know what you're dealing with. Imagine you hear a noise in the woods. If you don't look, your mind goes wild. Maybe it's a bear or a serial killer, or a bear that's also a serial killer. But if you look and see it's just a squirrel, problem solved. That's the power of clarity. Peterson says being vague is like letting monsters grow under the bed. They feed on uncertainty. Naming things, being specific, facing the problem head-on, that's what shrinks the monsters down to size. So yeah, precision isn't just about words. It's about courage. It's being willing to say, here's exactly what's wrong, and here's what I need, even when it's hard. That goes for your relationships, your job, even just how you talk to yourself. So next time life starts spinning out, don't just say, I'm overwhelmed. Ask yourself, what's actually going on? What part of this can I name? Because once you know what the dragon is, you can actually figure out how to fight it. And that leads us straight into Rule 11, where the risks get bigger and the growth gets real. Rule 11, do not bother children when they are skateboarding. This rule sounds oddly specific, right? But hang with me, it's deeper than it sounds. Here's the thing, when you see a bunch of kids trying wild tricks at the skate park, flipping boards, flying down rails, falling on their faces, you might think, that's dangerous. Why are they doing that? But that danger, that's the point. Jordan Peterson uses this example to talk about something way bigger, how we grow, how we get strong, and why trying to make everything safe all the time can actually backfire. When kids take risks, whether it's skateboarding, climbing trees, or just doing something new and scary, they're not just goofing off. They're learning. They're figuring out how to face fear, how to fail, and try again. That's how you become good at anything. That's how you become confident. Here's the kicker. If you protect someone too much, if you bubble wrap every part of their life, you're not keeping them safe, you're making them weak. And one day, life's gonna hit them hard, and they won't know how to handle it. Peterson even ties this into stories and myths, like Sleeping Beauty or The Little Mermaid, where the overprotective mother figure tries to keep the child safe, but ends up stopping them from growing. The message: being overprotective can actually trap someone instead of helping them. He's also not shy about calling out how this kind of thinking affects boys in particular. Society often tries to tame boys, telling them not to be loud, not to be rough, not to take risks. But those traits, properly channeled, they're not problems, they're strengths. Kids need a challenge. They need to learn how to push themselves, fall, get back up, and get stronger. Even the stuff like putting skate stoppers on rails or removing fun but risky playground equipment, it's all part of this pattern. It's people trying to eliminate risk instead of teaching kids how to deal with it. And that's a mistake. At the end of the day, Peterson says we need to face danger not just to survive, but to grow. So when you see a kid taking a risk, trying something hard, pushing their limits, don't stop them. Let them fall. Let them learn. Let them skateboard. Because out there at the edge of chaos and challenge, that's where people come alive. Rule 12, pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. So after all this deep talk about life, truth, responsibility, danger, and keeping your room clean, Jordan Peterson drops this curveball. Pet a cat or a dog when you encounter one on the street. At first, this rule sounds kinda random, right? Like really, pet a cat, that's the grand finale. But there's actually something powerful hiding in that simple moment. Because life can be brutal. You're gonna lose people, things will go wrong, health problems show up, plans fall apart. And Peterson knows this firsthand. He opens up about his daughter's painful, lifelong health struggles. It's heartbreaking. So how do you keep going when life hits that hard? How do you not just shut down or become bitter? Here's the thing, Peterson suggests that suffering isn't just a glitch in the system, it's actually part of the design. The limits we all have, our weaknesses, our struggles, they're what make us real. And human, and interesting. Think about it, Superman without kryptonite? Boring. What makes life meaningful is that it's not perfect. It's messy, and that's where the beauty sneaks in. So what's with the pet? It's a symbol, a reminder. In the middle of chaos, there are still tiny moments of peace and connection, but only if you notice them. Maybe it's an actual cat rubbing against your leg on the sidewalk. Maybe it's your coffee tasting extra good this morning, or a kid laughing, or a stranger smiling at you when you really needed it. Those moments won't erase the pain, but they can remind you that life isn't just pain. And here's why cats are a perfect metaphor. They don't give affection easily. You can't force a cat to like you. But if you're patient, if you're present, it might come over just for a second and give you this quiet little moment of connection. It's small, but it's real. So yeah, life can suck, but don't close off, don't stop looking around. Pay attention, find the little good things, and when you see a cat, maybe pet it. It might be exactly what you need to remember, that even with all its flaws, life is still worth showing up for. We've unpacked 12 rules, not just for surviving life, but for living it with purpose. At the core of all of it is one simple truth. Life is hard, but you are not powerless. You can stand up even when it hurts. You can tell the truth even when it's scary. You can take one small step toward order, even in the middle of chaos. These aren't just rules. They're reminders that meaning comes from effort. That hope comes from responsibility. And that beauty still exists, even in the darkest moments, if you're willing to see it. So start small, start today. Pick one thing, one habit, one rule. And aim up. Because the world doesn't need perfect people. It needs people who are trying, really trying, to make things just a little bit better. Thanks for coming on this journey with me. If this resonated, hit subscribe, leave a comment with the rule that stuck with you the most, and let's keep growing together. See you in the next one. Keep going, you've got this.